Libya's ex-spy chief is now in custody in his home country after being extradited from Mauritania. But where should he be tried? In Libya or at the International Criminal Court in The Hague? We ask whether this case will deepen Libya's standoff with the international community and what impact it will have on the country's first steps towards democracy. This is Inside Story. Hello again, I'm James Bays. Libya finally has Gaddafi's former spy chief, Abdullah al-Senussi, in its custody. He was handed over by Mauritania, one of the countries where he'd been hiding following Gaddafi's downfall last year. Senussi was arrested on his arrival in Mauritania in March after months on the run. The 62-year-old is accused of mass killings and torture during Gaddafi's rule. He's also wanted by France and the International Criminal Court, who want to take him to The Hague. But just as it did with Gaddafi's son Saif al-Islam, the Libyan government has made it clear that Senussi will face trial in Libya, saying it'll be fair and will meet international standards. Charles Stratford has more.
He was one of the most feared men in Libya. Muammar Gaddafi's former intelligence chief was bundled out of a helicopter and arrested on arrival in Tripoli. Abdullah al-Senussi was captured in Mauritania last March after arriving in the country on a fake passport from Morocco. Mauritania originally wanted to put him on trial for illegal entry, a move that Libya and many in the international community said threatened to delay efforts to have him face justice.
This is a great day for Libya, for the international community. The fact to take out this thug, this killer, who have killed many people.
In June 2011, the International Criminal Court issued a warrant accusing Senussi of crimes against humanity committed during the overthrow of Muammar Gaddafi. Senussi has also been linked to the 1988 bombing of an American Pan Am jet over Lockerbie in Scotland that killed 270 people. And France has already sentenced him to life for the shooting down of another airliner in 1989. But for many Libyans, it is the crimes that he is accused of committing in his home country that they want him to answer for. These include his alleged role in the 1996 massacre of more than 1,000 inmates in a Tripoli prison. But there are doubts over the transparency of Libya's justice system.
There are questions about the capacity of the judiciary, about whether they're able to sort through the type of evidence and put together the type of trial that would be considered to be a very high standard.
The Libyan authorities have promised a fair trial.
The government takes this opportunity to make sure that Abdullah al-Senussi and other symbols of the former regime who were accused have a fair trial that respects international standards of human dignity, which was a right denied to the Libyans during the rule of the tyrant.
Despite Libya's problems post-Gaddafi, Senussi's return shows just how determined the country is to make former regime loyalists face justice at home. Charles Stratford for Inside Story.
Well, let's now have a look back at exactly how Senussi got caught. In August 2011, Senussi fled Tripoli when it fell to the rebels, going first to Sirte and then heading southwards, which is home to his Magara tribe, before going to ground in Gat. On October the 20th, just one day after the killing of Muammar Gaddafi, Senussi crossed into Niger with a Tuareg escort. Niger's foreign minister confirmed that Senussi had then fled to Niger. In November, he was said to be in Mali, then Mauritania, and finally Morocco. On March the 16th, Senussi was arrested in the Mauritanian capital Nouakchott as he tried to enter the country from Morocco on a false passport. So can Libya give Abdullah Senussi a fair trial? To answer this question, we're joined by our panel of three guests. In Tripoli, Mohamed Yonos Toumi, a member of the General National Conference of Libya, that's the legislative body in the country. In New York, Philip Alston, a professor of international law at New York University. Alston is also a former UN Special Rapporteur on extrajudicial summary or arbitrary executions. He held that post between 2004 and 2010. And in New York, via broadband, Hanan Salah, she's a researcher on Libya and Mauritania at Human Rights Watch. Welcome to you all. Can I start in Libya with Mr. Toumi? Can I get the reaction not just of government officials, of yourself, but what's the reaction there on the ground from ordinary Libyans, the fact that Senussi is now in Tripoli?
Actually, maybe the most important thing, the reaction of Libyan people, more important than my reaction, my own reaction, and also the government reaction. But anyway, I can say fairly that the reaction of Libyan people, my reaction, and the Libyan government reaction is a very positive, is a reaction of victory. This is a very great step in the right direction, and it's a response to a wide Libyan demand to put this figure, Mr. Abdullah Senussi, on the trial.
Okay, Hanan in New York, we've already heard some of the background to this case, but tell us about some of the alleged crimes of Mr. Senussi.
Well, of course, for starters, it's important to mention that Mr. Abdullah al-Senussi, the former chief of intelligence under the Gaddafi government, is wanted in relation with some very, very serious crimes. Some of these crimes have created a real trauma for the Libyan people. I've been living in Libya for over a year now, and I know that in every discussion, the issue of Abu Salim comes up. For that, so it is important to keep in mind that, you know, his activities and his action with the government before, even before this conflict.
You mentioned Hanan. You mentioned Abu Salim. That's the name of a jail on the edge of Tripoli. Just remind our viewers what happened there.
So it is important to keep in mind that in 1996, in one single night, over 1,200 prisoners were summarily executed by the guards and by the prison directorate. You know, we have written reports about this, much like many others have, and there is a direct implication of Mr. al-Senussi, of course, in these crimes. That, you know, he may have given orders, he may have been there at that time. And as I said, this is a big trauma for the Libyan people. What I would like to raise here is that, given this trauma and given the severity of these actions, it is important for the victims and for the families of the victims that they see justice, that this person is put to justice in a fair trial, and that they seek justice and, of course, not revenge.
Well, we'll come to the fair trial and whether it can take place in Libya. But if I can get Philip's view on this, when you were in your UN role as Special Rapporteur, did you have your eye on Mr. Senussi?
Yes, Senussi has very long been accused of having played a key role in all of the Gaddafi regime's security activities. He was convicted in France in 1999 of a bombing of a French airplane over Niger in 1989, which killed 170 people. That was a serious trial. All the evidence was presented and he was convicted. The ICC then has also identified him as having been a key player in Benghazi in the events in early 2011, which involved a lot of killings, a lot of mistreatment of protesters and so on. Senussi has a very long track record of involvement in activities that violated international human rights standards.
Philip, you mentioned the bombing of a plane in 1988, but also there are those who say he was behind the bombing of a plane in 1989. I actually attended that trial myself, and many more question marks about that one. Lockerbie, I'm talking about.
Yes, the prosecutors on the Lockerbie case are very keen to speak with him. It's widely assumed that he would have directed that exercise, that he was responsible for briefing and sending the bombers, and that he would be able to provide the inside story.
Okay, moving to Mr. Toumi in Tripoli. We're hearing about the international dimension of this. Some of these alleged crimes took place not in Libya. Is that not a good reason for this trial to be held by the International Criminal Court in The Hague?
Firstly, may I, as you mentioned, or one of your guests mentioned, the Abu Salim massacre in 1996. I may say that I was in jail at that time, and I saw part of this massacre by my own eyes, and also I saw Mr. Senussi himself standing giving orders. On top of that, he himself has executed some of torture on my body, myself, in 1984 as electric shocks and other colleagues. So Mr. Abdullah Senussi has a long history in this field with Libyan people before anyone else. And to answer your question, all what you mentioned doesn't deprive Libyan people from the right of having trial or taking trial of Mr. Abdullah Senussi on Libya, because Libya has the genuine right to have the priority to put him in trial under Libyan law. And I believe Libya will take into consideration its obligations, its international obligations on top of Libyan law obligation.
OK, Mr. Toumi, there are some, of course, who are suggesting that the security situation in Libya makes it difficult to have a fair trial. Let's look at the background. Libyans were hoping that July's elections would mark a step forward in a country that's been crippled by uncertainty and insecurity. But the new government will have to confront a series of major issues. The transitional government has failed to break the stranglehold of militias that helped to remove Gaddafi. Many now use their firepower for political advantage. A new government will have to find a way to disband and integrate them into a regular unified army. Since Gaddafi's overthrow, tribal, regional and ethnic divisions have paralysed Libya. A new government will have to manage renewed claims for autonomy in the country's eastern province as well as in the south. A lack of security is also leading to armed clashes. Libya's new rulers will have to work swiftly to establish the rule of law and build a justice system that will serve the only recourse for settling disputes in all of Libya. As the world's fifth largest producer of oil, many Libyans hope their country will become a magnet for investment, but the collapse of authority has left the country's economy in tatters. Hanan, can I ask you, you spent a lot of time in Libya, what's your assessment? Is the security situation, does that mean it's a place that is capable of holding a trial like this?
I think, first of all, the gentleman mentioned two two key issues here. With regards to the security situation, I believe that, Libya is really undergoing a major challenge in bringing in and reining in all of these armed groups and these militias. We have been reporting, and other human rights organizations and the UN Commission of Inquiry has been reporting on the extensive abuse and ill treatment, torture, and even cases of deaths in custody in Libya, and usually in jails that are under the authority or are being run by the armed groups. We have found that the prisons that are run by the government are usually slightly better, but not without their problems. However, the situation in Libya with the justice system, which the justice sector as a whole, which is in want of a restructuring with regards to its systems, with regards to its appeals courts, the judges, etc. I mean, there are large issues that Libya is facing that make it really difficult for them to just pick up and to be fair, they just went through quite a conflict. So it is obviously taking the Libyan government quite some time to pick up the pieces and to go back to a system that is fully capable of granting people a fair trial. I would just like to get back to what the gentleman said, and he's completely right. Libya should not be deprived of giving this person a trial, should not be deprived of justice for all the crimes that were allegedly committed before this revolution. I think it is important to mention that the International Criminal Court has a limited mandate in Libya. Their mandate is limited to this past conflict, to this revolution, and the crimes that were by and large committed at the beginning of this conflict. However, the gentleman also touched on a very important issue, which is Libya's international obligations. So the security mandate, the Security Council Resolution 1970, 1970 requires Libya requires Libya to, of course, cooperate with the International Criminal Court. An arrest warrant has been issued by the International Criminal Court asking Libya to surrender people that are wanted, which means that if Libya wants to challenge that, then they can do that, like they did in the case of Saif al-Islam al-Gaddafi.
Okay, I'll come to Saif al-Islam in a moment. Just a very quick answer from you. You've given us all the context there, but given the current situation in Libya, do you think he would get a fair trial?
I think that Libya has to ensure that now he is in Libyan custody. They have to show us what they are planning to do. There are certain steps in order to ensure that every prisoner gets his due process rights, meaning that he is presented to a judge promptly, that he has legal representation, that he has access to a lawyer of his own choosing, that he's able to confer with his family and with his lawyer freely, that he is treated, of course, humanely. We have been calling upon the Libyan government to grant all of these rights for thousands of detainees.
Philip, can I ask you as an international law expert, what are the obligations of Libya to the International Criminal Court here?
Well, the obligations to the International Criminal Court are at one level pretty straightforward. At another level, they're a little bit more complex. Basically, the International Criminal Court has issued an arrest warrant for al-Senussi. They therefore are claiming the right to try him for crimes against humanity, which, as was mentioned, relate only to the incidents in Benghazi in early 2011. The response of the Libyan government is, first of all, we want to try him for a much broader range of crimes rather than just focusing on those. But don't worry, ICC, we will also take care of the same crimes that you're charging him with. And so therefore, under the ICC statute, using a notion called complementarity, priority should be given to a national level prosecution if they can show that they are both able and willing to prosecute him in a way that respects international standards. The complexity, though, the problem, is whether in fact Libya can charge and try al-Senussi with the same crime, in other words, crimes against humanity. Crimes against humanity are not actually part of the Libyan criminal law, and therefore Libya would be trying him for what we call ordinary crimes, murder and rape and torture and so on. The ICC's response is, well, that is not the same crime, therefore you don't get priority under the doctrine of complementarity.
Okay, Mr. Toumi in Tripoli. Why should he be, Mr. Toumi? Why should he be tried in Tripoli? Just make that case, and can he get a fair trial?
Yeah, I'd like to remind everybody that Libyan people struggled against Gaddafi for more than 4 decades. Why? Why did Libyan people give their blood, their young people suffered for more than 4 decades in order to have a free country, in order to have a democratic country. And now we got rid of that era, and Libya is now in a new era marked by rule of law.
Yes,
so,
well, that's your intention, but is there a rule of law actually existing now, and is the Libyan judiciary strong enough to handle this case?
Yeah, just one moment, please. So this is put us under obligation against ourselves before be obligated by any other. Our obligation is rule of law. So we look forward to trial these figures under these obligations. On top of that, in addition to that, it happened that our obligation is the same as our obligation with international obligations. I mean that we are free country. We are admitted that we should obligate or be consent with our obligations, international obligations. We have the genuine right of put Mr. Senussi under trial. We executed successful election in addition to any other steps. So why shouldn't we be able to execute a free and fair trial
Can I give you one possible example, Mr. Toumi? What about the case of Saif al-Islam Gaddafi, who is the other prominent defendant? He's not even being held by your judiciary, by your court system. He's being held by a militia.
No, maybe we don't agree 100% it's by a militia. This, what you call a militia, is a revolutionary people. And I would say in Libya now, there is no real institutions or complete built-up institutions. The Libyan people themselves who are taking the responsibility of everything approximately. And this, what you call militia, is coordinating with the official people in Libya and the official people in Libya, and I am one of them. We agreed to give them this right to protect and hold Saif al-Islam until the time of his trial. Libyan people know that it's critical for Libya. It's critical for Libya to have Mr. Senussi and Gaddafi to be held securely, treated humanly, and tried fairly in full compliance with international law.
Okay, let me bring in now Hanan from Human Rights Watch. Are there possible comparisons that worry human rights activists like yourself with 2006 and the trial of Saddam Hussein, which in Iraq many, I think, human rights activists said was worrying?
Well, I mean, the thing is that, you know, as the gentleman mentioned, there is a breakdown of security in Libya. The security situation has been deteriorating gradually, but unfortunately rather steadily. And you know, the point that you mentioned with the armed groups or these militias, however you want to call them, who are in control, they are de facto in control, and you know, they're the ones who are, if you will, who call the shots in Libya. You know, with regards to granting a fair trial, there are big challenges, and I think that I mentioned a large part of them. The main one being that, you know, Libya is not, in fact, the Libyan government does not have full control over the detention facilities, and they do not yet have a full control over all of the detainees. There are big question marks, even, you know, on the prisons that are run by the Ministry of Justice, that, you know, have elements of security committees in them, etc. So this is one element. You know, you need to have the prisons and the justice system under your control if you want to be able to use the courts and you want to try people in a proper manner.
Okay, can I just bring in Philip now? Can I bring in Philip for a wider point, Philip? There'll be some that are watching this saying there are double standards at work, that there are indictments of the International Criminal Court here against Mr. Senussi, but there are lots of other people, Ali Abdullah Saleh in Yemen, Ben Ali in Tunisia, that the International Criminal Court isn't even looking at, because the system, the International Criminal Court's trials may be fair, but actually who is investigated isn't fair.
Well, I think it's fair to say that the ICC does not have a comprehensive global mandate nor the resources to take on all cases. It's true that this was a reference by the Security Council. It's true probably that there was a particular political constellation at that time. But of course, the current Libyan authorities were very strongly in favor of the action taken by the Security Council. And the indictment at that stage of these three individuals was viewed in a very positive light.
But Philip, there'll be some that are watching this. Philip, there are some that are watching this, seeing the war crimes that are taking place in Syria right now and knowing that no action has been taken against anyone in Syria.
I think the fact that there are bad things happening shouldn't prevent us from trying to get this one right. I mean, I could be even more provocative, of course, and talk about the trial of bin Laden. In other words, there was no attempt to bring him to justice. The United States government would never have contemplated handing him to an international criminal court. And of course, that influences the thinking of the Libyan government and the Libyan people.
Okay,
they want to
Philip,
do it themselves.
Philip, thank you. I'm sorry to interrupt you there, but we have to end it. It's been a fascinating discussion. Thanks to all our guests. In Tripoli, Mohamed Yonos Toumi; in New York, Philip Alston; and in New York, Hanan Salah. Thanks to all our guests. Most of all, thanks to you. We want your views on this and other topics. Please send us an email, insidestory@aljazeera.net. I'll be back 24 hours from now. Make sure you're here too, same time, same place. Bye-bye.